We call the Board of Mayor and Aldermen meeting for Tuesday, February the 11th, 2025 to order. We will open the meeting with prayer by Fred Shackelford from Ellendale Baptist Church. As he makes his way forward, I ask if you're able to please stand for prayer and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance afterwards.
Let's pray. Father God, we thank you that we live in a community like Bartlett where we have diversity and the opportunity to be neighbors with everyone who's a part of this city. And Lord, I thank you that that is the heart of this body, this mayor, these aldermen, my friends who want the best for this city. Lord, we know that there are many difficult issues that leaders have to make decisions on. We know that tonight this meeting is full of those kind of issues. So they need desperately your wisdom. And Lord, you're a God who grants wisdom as it is sought after. And I know these have sought after your wisdom. And so, Lord, we just ask you to lead as you see fit. And Lord, we pray not just for this meeting. We pray for our first responders, for our police, our fire, our ambulance, our hospitals. Lord, we pray for all of those who go toward difficult situations and danger when many are going away from them. And Lord, I pray for whatever the issue was on Summer Avenue with the accident or whatever that was that happened tonight. Lord, I pray for the safety and the healing of those involved. And Lord, we give this time to you. It's in Christ's name I pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, will you read the future meetings into the record, please?
Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, February 13th at 6 p.m. Historic Preservation Commission, February 17th at 6:30 p.m. Bartlett Arts Council, February 18th at 6 p.m. Bartlett Performing Arts and Conference Center Advisory Board, February 18th at 6 p.m. Design Review Commission, February 18th at 6:30 p.m. Board of Zoning Appeals, February 20 at 6:30 p.m.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We now move to recognitions. Somewhere out there is a Boy Scout in the crowd. Seeing no Scouts come forward, we will. I'd like to recognize. We had the opportunity to spend this afternoon with Leadership Bartlett class of 2025. If you're in the room, please stand, be recognized. Thank you. Okay, now we move to the official business of the day. You have before you the minutes of January the 28th in your packet. If there's no omissions, corrections, or errors, the Chair will entertain a motion to approve. Been properly motioned and properly second. Madam Clerk, we present the roll. Minutes from the January 28th, 2025 are passed unanimously. We now move to the public hearings. We have 4 public hearings. Madam Clerk, will you read the rules?
Individuals will have a maximum of 3 minutes to speak either for or against the item, with a total of 20 minutes for each side. The first public hearing, Resolution 01-25, a resolution approving a special use permit to allow a church use to be located at the east side of Broadway Road on parcel B0149000261, just north of the Ellendale 5-way intersection within the RE Residential Estate Zoning District.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The timer will be set, as she said, and there's a maximum of 3 minutes and 20 minutes each side. So those wishing to come to the microphone to speak in favor of granting Resolution 01-25, please come to the podium at this time. State your name and address for the record, please. Those wishing to speak in favor of granting Resolution 01-25, please come forward. See a whole lot of pointing down there. Is anybody going to take charge?
Mayor, can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
This is not a church use, it's for the mosque, right?
It's for the use of a church.
For the use of a church. Okay. Is that the same thing? Okay.
Yes.
Good deal. Just making sure we weren't getting confused with what it was. Okay.
So is there anybody wishing to come forward to speak in favor? If you would, please state your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. My name is Mohamedullah. My address is 4115 Corseview Cove, Bartlett, Tennessee 38135.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And once again, good evening to everybody. I actually moved this city. It's a beautiful city, maybe a dozen years ago, with my family. And my daughters, they've gone through from the grade schools to university now. And I'm one of the many Muslim business owners who have settled in this beautiful city where we have always felt welcome. Many of our children only have known this greater Memphis area as their only own city. Among us, there are teachers, there are doctors, and so many people from all other fields in our community. However, we do not have a dedicated prayer facility where we can perform our congregational prayer. And I think you all know, most of them know maybe not, Muslim men are highly recommended to perform their daily prayer, especially the early morning one and the nightly one at the mosque in a congregations. So I know there is you all know is few mosques in the city, but driving like 30 minutes back and forth in multiple times is not a feasible solution for this problem. We don't have any mosque in the northeast side of this town. So we are trying to establish our own prayer place in this area in the city of Bartlett. And our children, especially the children we are raising, and they need a place where they can learn their faith and they can worship in the place. So all we are requesting everyone to have a small place so that we can pray and practice our faith in a serenity. And this is our appeal to everybody, the mayors, the aldermen, and all our good neighbors to help us to set a praying place for us. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak in favor?
My name is Shuja Ahmed. My address is 7935 Ivy Lake Lane, Bartlett, Tennessee. Thank you everyone for being here and giving us the opportunity to present our case. I would just like to second Brother Salim's plea about giving us or allowing us to establish our own place where we could pray and practice our faith. As you know, United States is unique in that it has the most diverse community, gives us freedom in all aspects, be it religion, be it speech. And so, by the same stretch, I feel Bartlett as town should allow us to sort of, practice our faith and live us in harmony. Our community is growing as a Muslim community. We have people from all walks of life. What is missing from our standpoint is a place where really, as you know, religion is an important part of everyone's life, of most people's life, and so that's just like anyone else, that's important to us as well. helps us raise our kids and helps our kids to connect with our faith. That's important to us. And so having that place where we could really practice our faith and be not just from a religion standpoint, also provides us as a sort of venue for social interactions, for community sort of, come together as well. So I think that's important, that's missing. Right now, I can talk about myself. I have to drive down at least maybe 15, 20 minutes to really pray or go out to a mosque. So having one here within close range, 5 to 10 minutes for me would be very convenient. And so would it be for other people. So I really would like to, again, thank Bartlett City and everyone here for giving us the opportunity, and would appreciate if you could sort of consider our request in a positive light.
Thank you. Anyone else?
My name is Casey Lanham. My address is 3992 Davies Manor Drive, Bartlett, Tennessee, 38133. I'm a lifelong citizen of Bartlett, and I'm delighted to see that the Bartlett Muslim Society is here and that they have put in this application. I second the other speakers that this is a nation that's founded on fundamentally the freedom of belief, the freedom of religion, and I feel that the application process should be looked at in an identical way to any other house of worship that's being built in this city. But we have an obligation as citizens and as neighbors to make that space and to make our city welcoming. I think it would bring a great deal of kindness and just basic common sense and basic respect and courtesy to look at that application fairly and equitably. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wish to speak in favor? If you're thinking about speaking, make up your mind while he's talking so we can expedite this, please.
Thank you. My name is David Burns. I live at 3127 I'm sorry, Valley Lake Drive. I know all these people. They're good people. Businessmen. They work here in the city. Bartlett. I'm sorry, I've got respiratory issues right now. But they're good guys. They love their family. They love their religion. And they deserve a chance to do a mosque here. They're good guys. Other than that, I don't know why we keep them out. They, all their business is here. They put money into the community. So I think we should give them a chance and give them a mosque. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening. My name is Rahman Qureshi. I live at 4284 Fisk Valley Drive, Bartlett, Tennessee. I was born and raised in Memphis, so I'm 44 years. Our community, Muslim community, was very small. I mean, we had probably only 10, 12 families, and now there's hundreds of families in the city of Memphis, and just that city of Bartlett, the community is growing. And each part, you got Germantown, Collierville, you got these other areas where, the population is growing, and it's very difficult to have just a few mosques with a lot of population coming in and out. It's just very difficult. There's a lot of traffic that occurs in some of those places, so it's easier to have it spread out. But I was practically raised in Bartlett. I went to Bartlett High School, so go Panthers. And it'd be great to actually see a mosque built here that's close to my home, close to my family, where I can raise my child there and take him there as well, rather than having to drive so far out to these other locations that are almost 20 miles apart, some more than that. But I think we should consider, because we are a nation of diversity, to have a mosque located in Bartlett, just like any other temple or synagogue or church that would want to come in the city. So it'd be greatly appreciated if you could consider this. It would help families grow, and it would help the community grow. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Madam Clerk, do we have time? Did we receive any of those that wish to speak in favor by written correspondence? None. Okay. So I see no one else wishing to come forward to be recognized to speak. So at this time, we will move to those that wish to speak in opposition. Those wishing to speak in opposition for Resolution 05-21, please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record.
My name is Dale Mathis, a.k.a. William Mathis on the tax records. My wife and I live at 4400 Broadway Road. Been there for 32 plus years, 35 years, something like that. We built. When we built, Broadway was not a problem. Since we've lived there, all the subdivisions out behind us have been added with one way out, Broadway Road. Or they have to go to Austin P, or they have to go to Summer. But the quickest to Bartlett is Broadway Road. I think everybody here knows that the 5-way is a mess. The traffic, I've got the report, I've read it. The traffic report stated that they didn't see a problem with any additional traffic going through there. But I have seen wrecks. Nobody's been killed that I know of, but there are wrecks in the intersection. There's a lot of finger pointing and a lot of horn blowing. I'm not against any kind of worship group, be it synagogue, mosque, church, whatever, just not on Broadway Road. The traffic with a train, I really have to question the reasoning why this specific spot is ideal for anything, a community center for anything. Even in the record it states it's 8 acres and it could be 8 houses, and I'm not believing it. I've made a picture of the area after a mild rain, not a heavy rain, a mild rain, not like the one that flooded Stage and Bartlett Boulevard. But I made a picture of it, a retention pond. I can't do the calculation because I don't know how to do it, but a retention pond would have to be huge to keep that land from flooding. And if you're going to put a parking lot on it, then you're not going to want any water on the parking lot. My question is, for the applicants, is why is this specific spot so ideal for a mosque or a church or a synagogue? Like I said, it doesn't matter to me. There's trains going through there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, blowing a horn, wakes me up in the middle of the night. I can hear it. On school mornings and school afternoons, the report said something about 8 months the school's in session. Well, that's not true. It's 10 months because it starts in that August 7th and goes through May 22nd. The buses are going at 7 in the morning, 6:30 or 7 in the morning, and they stop at the crossing. Okay. Well, thank you. Can I submit this or?
You can't if you won't leave it with me.
Good evening. My name is Brian Costner, 4200 Broadway Road. On the same lines as the gentleman before, it appears that is not an ideal spot for any kind of development. I think the community would be up in arms for a children's hospital attempting to get put there, not because they hate children, or a grocery store, and we don't hate food. The traffic report goes 3 years out, and it already doubles. It goes from 25 to 52 cars in 3 years, and the parking lot being proposed is 52 cars. Well, that's a little deceptive because the traffic report doesn't consider the next 3 years. In the next 3 years, churches grow. The community has already stated it wants to grow. 52-car parking lot is going to fill up in 3 years. The capacity for a 15,000 square foot facility by fire code, for Bartlett's fire code, is 15 square feet per person, so it's a 1,000-person facility. A 52-car parking lot will not accommodate 1,000 people. But the facility is designed to grow for 1,000 people. You'd have to have 25 people in a car. That's not going to happen. You're going to need to expand that parking lot. It's not going to stay 52. It's going to be double, triple, quadruple that in order to accommodate its capacity. So I think it's a little deceptive to just go 3 years into the future and look at the statistics of what the traffic could be and just say in 3 years it's still going to be level of service A. It's going to be free-flowing, and the community should just deal with it. That's not acceptable. That's not taking into consideration the growth of 10 years or 20 years, because once that facility is allowed to begin, then by definition it's allowed to grow. And that's just not a good spot to be growing that much. A mosque should be able to exist. But again, that's just not the right spot to be able to do that. The congestion. Anyways, well, that's my point. Appreciate your time. Thanks.
Thank you.
Board members, I'm Charlie Goforth, and I live at 4238 Broadway Road, about a third of a mile away from here. And frequently, traffic backs up past my driveway where I can't get out of there at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and in the morning. The existing zoning is a residential estate, and that permits one lot, an acre for every lot, so you could have 8 lots here. And that's permitted today. They could do that today. And if they want to build 8 houses down there right now, I support it, and I would be their neighbor. But a church is not suitable at that location. I don't support the special use for a church or any other special permit that would increase the traffic over to what 8 houses would do there. And if this is approved, we'll be back here in 2 years with a request to expand it. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Carrie Bristow. I live at 4117 Broadway Road, directly across the street from the property, so I can speak to the experience more than any person that has been up here yet. Anyone that has spoken for this does not live anywhere near the vicinity of this property. They have no idea what a nightmare traffic truly is. I can't get out of my driveway most days. I've been in 2 wrecks there. I've been spun into my own driveway with my daughter sitting in the back seat in a car seat. It is not safe. I do not think this is a wise location. I don't understand why they will not just find a different one. It has nothing to do with their religion, their faith. We welcome you guys into Bartlett. I don't care. I'm for it, whatever. But that is not an ideal location. The floods, I did want to speak on that. There's been, several times throughout the year I look out my front window and we have lakefront property. We are no longer, landlocked. So they will not have lakefront property. They will be in the middle of one unless they are planning on building that property up quite high. The construction would cause a lot of stress. There has been a lot of animal deaths since they removed all of the habitat that was there. My yard has been flooded with wildlife. The widening of the road would cause more of that, and I would lose my front yard. That's pretty much all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Alan Campbell. I live at 7230 Periwinkle Cove in Ellendale. When my wife and I built our house there, we chose this area 33 years ago to build a house and raise our kids. And we did our research and looked at what was around us, and we looked at the surrounding parcels of land and how they were zoned. And this property in particular was zoned residential. So we didn't see anything else coming up at this intersection. In my mind, this particular sale should have never gone through in the first place. Seems like the seller, the buyer, the closing attorney should all hold some responsibility in this, and at least two of the three had to know what the zoning was at the time. And now here we are trying to change the zoning or make an adjustment to it. I don't know all the real estate legalities or if caveat emptor comes into play here, but it almost seems like they were able to sort of sneak the sale through. With the access road by the tracks and cars leaving the five-way store, this intersection is really more like a 6 or 7-way. The property is tightly bordered by the railroad, Broadway Road, and tree line on a higher residential property. As stated, it's very low and can flood. There's already a wastewater lift station on this site, and I'm sure some engineer might come up with some type of expensive plan or idea, but that doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. I also believe that the traffic study we keep referring to, which I know they said it may not make a change or difference, but that it was graded as an F. I also believe this may be sort of an incomplete or skewed bit of a traffic study, because if it's just taking the five-way into account, there's another 25 to 50% of unwanted traffic to consider that cuts through our residential area, which is right across the street from this property. People cut through by way of Luella and Fonta. Anything built on this parcel would bring even more unwanted, impatient vehicles speeding through our narrow streets that aren't even wide enough for two-way traffic. Our end of Fonta plus Luella, Periwinkle Cove are constantly filled with families taking walks, riding bikes, pushing strollers, walking their pets, and they're all the time being run off the road. Cars are run off the road, people are run off the road. Lastly, for those who think the objections have to do with this being a church, I, like others, I hope it could find a great location. I think this is just about location, not about the church. If it was Catholic, Methodist, Pentecostal, or if it was the Baptist church I'm a member of, I would be up here standing against it and not be for this. Same if it was a store or some type of business. The last thing we want to see is a large asphalt parking lot in a building in this already busy, chaotic area. To me, it's about common sense, practicality, and not making exceptions to the zoning that was already in place. And it's not your fault or ours that it wasn't paid attention to. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
How you doing? I'm Steve Howard, 7272 Luella. That's a residential. They knew that when they bought it. It's a lake 2 or 3 times a year. Go look at it right now. I live between the lady on Broadway and the guy on Periwinkle Cove. They use Luella and Fonta like a racetrack already. And anybody that thinks Broadway and the 5-way are not overloaded doesn't need a driver's license. And that's a fact.
Anyone else?
I'll make mine quick. Randy Baldock, 7218 Centralia Road. I'm not sure if all of y'all were here at the first meeting that we held on this subject, but if you were, and I'm assuming all y'all are elected officials, the majority was in favor of saying no to this resolution. And as elected official, I would prefer you to answer to your citizens of Bartlett that want you to say no to this resolution. And everything they've said, I live on Centralia, which is right. It empties into the five-way stop. What Alan just mentioned about the cutting through the subdivision, it happens every day. When I turn on my driveway, there's people coming out of those streets. So you can't just gauge the five-way stop when you do a traffic study. You got to look at the back roads, and it's just not built for anything to be built on that property, anything of size. The gentleman that mentioned maybe putting some houses over there, that would work, but anything other than houses is just not proper for that area right now. It's just my personal opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Madam Clerk, do we have time? Have we had any written correspondence? And is there time left to read those into the record?
Yes, we had two. Roger Cotton, 4341 Bishops Valley Lane. Dear elected officials, February 11th, there will be a public hearing regarding a special use permit for a church to be built on Broadway at the five-way intersection. I will be unable to attend the hearing, but wanted to take a moment to express my concerns as a citizen of Bartlett. I am opposed to the location. I am not opposed to a church of any religion being built, but the proposed 8-acre location is not suitable for this. The group is asking to build a 5,000 square foot building expandable to 15,000 square foot. We automatically assume it will be a 15,000 square foot build, triple the ask. The lot will need to be engineered for that building and required infrastructure. The lot is likely too small to adequately accommodate a 15,000 square foot facility with parking and amenities, but the biggest problem is the physical location on Broadway at the five-way intersection. Those of us who drive through that intersection several times daily can attest to the traffic load and driver confusion. I haven't seen the traffic study that was done, but from personal experience I can tell you Broadway and the surrounding roadways are not suitable for this additional traffic. I am against the building at the proposed location. What can we do to help them find a more suitable parcel? Marla Simmons and Marjorie Simmons at 7274 Centralia Road. This is in regards to the following resolution, 01-25. Please advise the Board of Mayor and Aldermen that we are against this resolution and request that this matter be denied.
Thank you. So that's all. That's it? Thank you, Madam Clerk. So we've recognized those in favor, those in opposition. We've read those items into the record when time allowed. So at this time we will adjourn Resolution 01-25. And Madam Clerk, will you read item number 2 under public hearings into the record, please?
Reset the public hearing for March 11th, 2025 for Resolution 02-25, a resolution approving a special use permit to allow a planned residential development to be located at the southeast corner of Yale Road at Bartlett Boulevard within the RS-10 single-family residential zoning district.
Mr. Sam Harris from the Planning Department, will you give an explanation of why this public hearing needs to be reset for the board, please?
Absolutely. Good evening. So the applicant who took this plan development through the Planning Commission in November, they lost the purchase option on the lot, and so they contacted our office and said, please hold the public hearing for this application, as I do not have the option at this time. However, in the meantime, the option is now back on the table, and the applicant is in agreement to proceed with the development as it was approved by the Planning Commission at the November 2024 meeting. And so they just asked that they reset the public hearing for March 11th, 2024, since the public notice did not go out, and we would like to have the adequate public correspondence for that public hearing.
Thank you for the explanation, Mr. Harris. Those wishing to speak in favor, please come to the podium at this time. If you're in favor of resetting the public hearing, March 11th, 2025. Seeing no one come forward, those wishing to speak in opposition, please come forward at this time. Seeing no one come forward, we will adjourn. the public hearing for Resolution 02-25. Madam Clerk, will you read item number 3, the public hearing, to the record, please?
Ordinance 24-14, an ordinance to amend the City of Bartlett zoning ordinance, Article 6, Section 9, supplementary district regulations, parking, storage, or use of major recreation equipment, Article 6, Section 10, parking and the storage of certain vehicles in the residential zoning districts by adding definitions, and Article 6, Section 12, minimum off-street parking requirements.
At this time, the public hearing is open for those who wish to speak in favor for ordinance 24-14. Seeing no one wishing to be recognized, we will move to those wishing to speak in opposition of ordinance 24-14. If you would, state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Nick Bussey. I live at 3463 Flintlock Drive in Bartlett. Hi, my name is Nick Bussey. I've lived here in Bartlett all my life. I'm also the owner of an enclosed trailer that I use for a small business and for hauling toys. Because my yard slopes sideways and down the back, towards the back of my property, I don't have the ability to park my trailer in what is considered the backyard without getting stuck in the mud. It also means that paving all of that, as I understood it from Kevin's post on Facebook, by the way, thank you, is that my side yard would now have to be paved. And because of the way my yard slopes, I would have to build a retaining wall between me and my neighbor and then pave the side piece on the side of my house. I'd be looking to spend at minimum $8,000 with the way concrete and everything else is so inflated right now. So is there anybody in this room that can and that would willingly spend that much money because these guys decided to change the rules? I don't have that money laying around, and I'm sure nobody else does either. This economy has been tough, and we can't afford it. Not to mention, we'd likely need to pull permits for it. I had a Bartlett engineer tell me a few years ago that I bought the wrong house when discussing water drainage issues through my backyard and into my neighbor's backyard drain. That comment wasn't appropriate then, and it's not appropriate now with this. Perhaps worst case, you could grandfather us in, us current trailer owners, with an affordable permit tied to our property, or maybe gravel can be an option. And let me be clear, I appreciate the work you guys do, making and keeping Bartlett looking beautiful, but this is going too far. Not to mention, certain parts of Bartlett look way worse than others. And the city seems to be turning a blind eye. There's a house around the corner from my house that has 3 or 4 cars in the driveway on blocks and has been for months. So I'd like to get a free pass too, if possible. My trailer and property aren't going to look any different whether my trailer is parked in the grass or on concrete. The mindset of a former code enforcement director here at Bartlett was that Bartlett was trying to be like Collierville, Arlington, and Lakeland in what they allow and don't allow. The problem is we don't live in Arlington, Collierville, or Lakeland. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to come forward?
How y'all doing? My name is Josh McDowell, address 6311 Star Valley Drive. I just opened a small mobile dog grooming business. I have a big trailer, 7x14. The only place I can put it is on the side of my house. I came in about a month ago. They told me at the time I was allowed to put down some gravel, put it on the side of the house. It won't fit in my garage. It won't fit in my driveway. It needs to go on the side of the house. So this is a big deal to me because I just opened my business last month. If there's any way this could be stopped, grandfathered in, like he said, I'm all for it, but I'm against losing the side of my house. I cannot put it in my backyard. There's a garage on one side, and my lot line's not big enough to try to do it from the other side. So just want to say that I'm against this, and hopefully y'all drop this one. Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing no one else wish to come forward, be recognized, we will adjourn the public hearing for ordinance 24-14. Madam Clerk, will you read item number 4 into the record, please?
Ordinance 24-15, an ordinance of the City of Bartlett, Tennessee, adopting by reference state traffic offenses and the rules of the road.
Okay, does anyone wish to come forward and speak in favor? Seeing no one wishing to be recognized, those in opposition to ordinance 24-15. Have we received any written correspondence on that?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. So seeing no one wish to come forward to speak against ordinance 24-15, we will adjourn. We will adjourn item number 4 under the public hearing and move to unfinished business. Madam Clerk, will you read item number 1 under unfinished business into the record, please?
Resolution 01-25, a resolution approving a special use permit to allow a church use to be located at the east side of Broadway Road on parcel B0149000261, just north of the Ellendale 5-way intersection within the RE Residential Estate Zoning District.
Mr. Sam Harris with the Planning Department and Economic Development.
Good evening. The zoning ordinance allows within all residential zoning districts, if it is 5 acres or greater in size, that they are allowed to apply for a special use permit for those special uses as designated within the use chart. So this property is zoned RE. It is over 5 acres at 8.244 acres. And so the property owner has applied for a special use permit for a church use. This property and this application started their journey at the Planning Commission in October of 2023. A public hearing was held and public input requested a traffic study to satisfy Article 6, Section 20, Subsection 3A, H, and I of Standards of General Applicability for a Special Use Permit. The traffic study performed during school day with all traffic attributes in play, then added trip generation from the conceptual site plan with 52 parking spaces. The traffic study revealed no additional harmful effects to the 5-way intersection from the addition of 52 parking spaces. Therefore, the application came back before the Planning Commission at the December 2024 meeting. Planning Commission approved a non-favorable recommendation that has been forwarded to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen this evening. Resolution 01-25, presented with conditions of approval that meet the 9 standards of general applicability for special use permits. Those conditions are listed on Resolution 125 within your BMA packet and are as follows, starting with the engineering. A commercial site plan contract shall be required and will be prepared by engineering and submitted to the developer engineer for review to cover the fees to be paid to the City of Bartlett. The applicant engineer shall provide a digital set of drawing files showing the sanitary sewer lines, drainage lines, lot lines, and all improvements in AutoCAD format to the utility engineer and assistant city engineer for use in the preparation of the water design plan. This plan will be coordinated with the site design engineer to resolve any conflicts. A water line extension by the applicant shall be required to bore under the railroad to meet commercial fire flow in order to be compliant with Article 6, Section 20, Subsection B, 3D of the Bartlett Zoning Ordinance. A SWIP and a TDEC permit shall be required and shall be submitted to TDEC and also to the City of Bartlett Engineering Office. All new utilities shall be underground. Stormwater detention will be required to be installed by the applicant in order to be compliant with Article 6, Section 20, Subsection B, 3D of the Bartlett zoning ordinance. The applicant shall remove the Fletcher Creek pump station, and the applicant shall extend sewer by boring under the railroad to direct the sewer into the City of Bartlett North Basin in order to be compliant with Article 6, Section 20, Subsection B, 3D of the Bartlett zoning ordinance. In the event of parking lot expansion or building expansion greater than shown on the conceptual site plan, being a 15,000 square foot building and 52 parking spaces, a traffic study will be required to assess the impact of traffic on the surrounding areas in order to be compliant with Article 6, Section 20, Subsection B, 3, A, B, H, and I of the Bartlett zoning ordinance. Road widening shall be required on Broadway Road by the applicant in order to be compliant with Article 6, Section 20, Subsection B, 3, A, H, and I of the Bartlett zoning ordinance. More specifically, the city requires developers to widen the road when they want to build a subdivision or apply for a special use permit. The subject property will utilize the road widening installed by the applicant along the portion of Broadway Road that fronts the subject property so that visitors are not stopping and stacking in the single lane waiting to turn into the property. A sprinkler system shall be required because the building is over 5,000 square feet, with a final build-out square footage of 15,000 square feet. The following plans will be required to be submitted for the Planning Commission and Design Review Commission site plan application approvals: landscaping, drainage, sewer, and water. The driveway to Broadway shall be shifted north by the applicant to allow for adequate site distance and vehicle stacking in order to be compliant with Article 6, Section 20, Subsection B, 3, A, H, and I of the Bartlett zoning ordinance. Additional 50 feet of railroad charter right-of-way easement shall be added along the 100-foot CSX railroad right-of-way. Additional right-of-way dedication should be shown clearly and called out as dedicated to the city. The dedication required is 34 feet from the center line of the roadway. And as far as the traffic study analysis, the traffic study was conducted by Martin Lupinski over a 1-week period in March 2024. The study included the level of service of the 5-way intersection for the existing conditions, the initial stage of construction, 2025, of a 5,000 square foot building with approximately 15 to 25 vehicular trip generations, and 3, the complete build-out, 2028, of a 15,000 square foot building with approximately 30 to 52 vehicular trip generations. The proposed site will have a single driveway onto Broadway and will consist of meeting rooms and worship space. The following observations were made. When traffic is heavy at the 5-way intersection, it is usually only heavy on 1 or 2 approaches at a time, so the intersection flow is pretty stable and longer queues dissipate quickly. Crash history analysis revealed no major concerns. Traffic volumes do not warrant signalization nor grade separation. No additional mitigation measures are warranted. Background traffic assumed to grow at 2% per year. Level of service for several approaches to the 5-way declined during the study period because of 2% growth rate of background traffic. However, none of the vehicular approaches declined further as a direct result of the mosque site development. As far as the planning conditions, the owner applicant is present at the meeting in order to make decisions relative to any changes that may be suggested by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. The applicant shall be present at the corresponding meetings to make decisions relative to any changes that may be suggested by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. Should the special use permit be approved by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, the applicant shall submit site plan applications for approval by the Planning Commission and Design Review Commission. The Planning Commission and Design Review Commission site plan submittals by the applicant shall address the specifics in order to be compliant with Article 6, Section 20, subsection B, 3, B, C, E, F, G, and H of the Bartlett zoning ordinance. The applicant shall submit site plan applications for approval by the Planning Commission and Design Review Commission for all future building additions and parking lot expansions with a revised traffic study for each site plan request. The applicant would need to revise the special use permit and traffic study to add any other special use permitted non-residential uses, such as a school use or other future ancillary use. So the conditions meet the 9 standards of general applicability for special use permit as defined in Article 6, Section 20, subsection 3. Those 9 standards would include ingress, egress. The applicant provided the traffic study. The applicant is in agreement to widen Broadway Road along their frontage to offload from stopping stacking in the single lane and also establishing a 34-foot right-of-way dedication. The applicant is in agreement to shift the driveway north for sight distance and stacking. The next item is the off-street parking and loading. The church use requires 1 space per 4 seats within the auditorium. At 52 parking spaces, that would yield 208 seats in the main auditorium. And the parking lot would have proper landscape islands, and all of this could be approved by the Planning Commission and Design Review Commission site plan approvals. C, refuse and service areas. The dumpster location is shown on the conceptual site plan. The materials and landscaping buffering detailed with that dumpster enclosure can be approved at the Design Review Commission site plan. As far as the mechanical units, those would either be on the ground or on the roof. If they are on the ground, then the fence or landscaping would act as a buffer. If it is on the roof, then the parapet screen would be applied. Yet again, all of that could be approved by the Planning Commission and Design Review Commission site plan approvals. Utilities. The applicant is in agreement to bore under the railroad for water and sewer extensions. The applicant is in agreement to remove Fletcher Creek Lift Station and redirect the sewer to the North Basin. This would take 20 to 25 lots redirected to the North Basin from Fletcher Creek. The applicant is in agreement to pipe the stormwater drainage across the lot and design a detention basin to release into the existing culvert under the railroad. And these items would be handled at the Planning Commission site plan approval. Screening and buffering. A 20-foot wide landscape plate 23A, B, or C would be required along the Broadway Road frontage. Landscape plate 23D along the 832 linear feet of the residential estate neighbor to the north would have 20 feet of landscaping, a 6-foot shadow box fence with a 6-foot tall brick column at 20 feet on center for the entire length of that 832 linear feet. And the details of the screening and buffering would be approved at the Planning Commission and Design Review Commission site plan approvals. Signs. This entity would be allowed a wall and ground sign not to exceed 100 square feet. The ground sign can be shown on the Planning Commission and Design Review Commission site plan. This sign would not be allowed to exceed 25 square feet. No pole signs are allowed, so this ground sign would be a solid base, a maximum of 6 feet in height, with a 3-foot landscape buffer on all sides. The required yards and open space. This property has, it's a non-residential lot as a church use if the special use permit is approved. So that front yard setback is 60 along Broadway, and along the side and rear yards, that is a 35-foot setback. And as far as the green space, it would be required to maintain a 35% green open space. The general compatibility with adjacent properties and other property in the district, the applicant has agreed that the architecture will be similar to other churches in the area, like a single roof, residential influence, no prayer chimes. But more specifically, the building colors and materials would be approved by the Design Review Commission with that site plan application. Also, the required yards, buffering, and landscape would exist just as most other churches within residential zoning. Other items considered relevant to the proposed special uses. The traffic study is tied to the expansion of future building and parking lot. You have the additional Planning Commission and Design Review Commission site plan approvals, and that required railroad charter right-of-way acts as an open space buffer to keep that open space compliant.
Thank you. Does anyone in the audience wish him to repeat that? Thank you, Sam. Before we move to a motion in a second, I just feel like it would be proper to ask Mr. Bray to come forward. There are several questions asked during the public hearing portion, and I do want to recognize those and let him answer some of those questions there so that the public's voice will be heard. And if you didn't catch what Mr. Harris had stated, one of the questions is we're changing the zoning. The current zoning allows a church built as long as it exceeded 5 acres and by special permit only. Mr. Bray, I wish you would speak to one of the ones that spoke said that there's 52 parking places there, and his 15 per square foot of a 15,000 feet allow 1,000 people there. Can you kind of shed some light onto why they only need 52 parking places? And there was a question asked earlier. It went from 152 to 52, and tell us how we got to there. And then if you feel like you can answer why that site is so ideal, if you could address those two items for me, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, and I may pull members of the board up here to answer some of this. Mm-hmm. First question, or the first issue that I'll deal with is the reduction in parking spaces from the original site plan. That was a misunderstanding on our part when we originally talked about what they wanted there, and we ended up putting a lot more parking on that spot than they wanted or needed. So that's why we have reduced it from the original application, and that's why you got the site plan that you have in front of you now. As far as the use, I'm not an architect, so what was the number? One per 15 square feet? Mm-hmm. That would be maximum if it were all set as assembly space. But much like this building, there's different uses. We're talking about meeting rooms. We may have a kitchen. There's the main assembly area. So it's not one big open 15,000 square foot space. And again, I'll let the members of the board talk what they would ultimately envision and what they think that they'll build with the first 5,000 square feet. What was the other question that we had? Well,
before we move to why the site was so ideal, maybe they need to answer that.
Yeah.
And just so, can you speak to the traffic study? Because I heard the question asked that 5,000 feet, they only needed 20 some odd parking places, and for 15,000 feet, they needed double that. And so the plan is do it in phases from 2025, from 5,000 by 2028 to complete the 15,000 square feet.
So Dr. Lipinski is here, and I'll let him address the questions on the traffic study.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Dr. Lipinski?
Hello. Good evening.
Good evening.
Dr. Martin Lipinski, 774 East Snowden Circle, Memphis, Tennessee. And I did the traffic study for this particular development. I want to emphasize that the important thing when we got started was that we knew this was going to be a very controversial project. And so the first thing was to scope the project out with the city engineering office, which we did. We didn't want to collect data when school was in session, and we wanted to make sure we collected enough data to anticipate any other areas where there might be some adverse impact. Because of that, the city required an extensive amount of data collection. We collected $11,000 worth of data. As a comparison, I also did the traffic study for the Union Depot, which generates 20 to 30 times the amount of traffic that this project does, and the cost for data collection was probably $3,000, just as a comparison. One of the things we do, and I'm not trying to give you traffic study 101 here, but I want to give you the background here so you understand how we did this study and how we arrived at the conclusions we did. The traffic generation, how much traffic is produced by a mosque, is very, very different from almost any other type of land use. If you're talking about a restaurant or if you're talking about an apartment complex, we have a wealth of data to tell us what the average number of trips will be made from that particular land use. Our book, our big manual, which talks about trip generation, there's only 2 data points for mosques, and they're both in Canada, and they're both very large mosques. I tried to do an extensive internet search to find out as many studies as I could that related to traffic generation at mosques, and there's just not much out there. So I visited several other mosques in the Memphis area to find out things like when are their peak hours, how many people arrive, everything about their traffic patterns, when do people come to pray, etc. So, based on that and with talks with the client about what they determined would be the size of their particular facility, we began to develop an estimate for how many trips would be made to and from the mosque. So in June 2024, we met with the staff. I presented my report on trip generation to the city engineer, the city traffic engineer, and we had a very fruitful meeting where we said, okay, this is what we're going to assume. We assumed the peak hours. The peak hour for a mosque is not coincidental with the peak traffic on the street. It's probably a Friday afternoon between 1 and 2 o'clock in the afternoon, which really doesn't interfere with peak hour traffic. We assume that the maximum number of vehicles would be 52, and that if there were any more than that, we would have to come back and do another study, as was stated previously. So, that's what we assumed to develop our study. We studied existing traffic. We studied traffic in 2025, this was 2024 when we did the study, and also in 2028 with the 2% growth. We studied with the facility and without the facility. So the conclusions, which I think you heard already from the presentation, but I want to emphasize that the other areas, the intersection of Luella and Broadway, the intersection of Shadow Lawn and Broadway, they're at level of service A, which is the best you can get, even with growth in traffic and even with mosque traffic. And one other point about the cut-through traffic. Yes, there was cut-through traffic on Llewellyn, but only when the train was there. That's what my data showed. There may have been a few cut-through vehicles, but basically the big slug was only when and that's what the data shows.
Okay, thank you. While I have Dr. Lipinski here, is there any questions from the board?
Yeah,
Greg King, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. The sections the intersections you said that were A, which ones were they? Would you repeat that to me? The ones that you just said were an A rating. Was that down at Shadow Lawn?
Yes.
Okay. How far away is that?
Gosh, I don't.
Several, maybe 2 or 3 miles, correct?
Well, I don't know if it's that far, but it's at least a mile plus.
I have been over there and sat at that post office, and at Fonta. Did you do any data on Fonta, the traffic that comes through the Fonta area, the cut through there?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so I've been sitting there without a train when the school buses are coming or going, and they cut through that subdivision on Fonta. And if you go down Fonta, I went in my vehicle, and there was a garbage truck coming down that road. I had to get in the grass, and they had to stop for me to go past that garbage truck. So you did no data on Fonta, and I don't know what the other street that makes that loop going around.
I have all the data coming into the five-way intersection.
But you didn't do it in those two side streets.
Just Luella. That's the only, I did whatever the city required me to do.
I understand that. I'm just asking a question.
No, I met with the city, and we had a scoping session, and I collected the data at all the locations they requested the data.
Thank you. Alderman, did you have a Oh, I'm sorry. Alderman Quinn?
I've got one question. You indicated that the peak hours were Friday from 1 to 2, that you didn't see any issues.
No.
That's when the buses would be leaving the 9th grade academy to go and pick up kids at the elementary schools and middle schools. And that's got to be a horrible time to try to go through Broadway right there. So I'd have to question whether or not your data is very accurate in terms of peak hours Friday from 1 to 2.
Okay. Well, you can have a question, but here's all the movements at the 5-point intersection from 4 in the morning till 10 o'clock at night. If you want to see where every car is coming from and every car is going, here's the data that I used.
So, Alderman Quinn.
Yeah, well, I appreciate the data collection, but this is one of these cases where real world scenario, if you ever had a child at the academy like I have, and the goal is to not go through the 5-way, is to come up Broadway and cut through or Central or something like that, or backwards to the post office if Brad's not sitting there waiting on you, waiting on something, to block the driveway. So and you're talking about Fridays at 1 to 2. There's 700 kids in the academy, and the school system keeps all their buses up there, which is a terrible thing in my opinion. But it's just a mess. But I appreciate the data collection, but I just don't see the real world applications of it from somebody who's sat in traffic or been through that.
Alderman Reese.
Thank you, Mr. Lipinski. I appreciate your profession. I know you're an expert in this. From 1 to 2 on Friday, what about after 2? Because the buses leave after 2 o'clock. Did you look at data on Fridays after 2 o'clock?
I have the data for the bus movements on the day that I collected traffic, but no, I didn't specifically analyze. There were not that many buses. I don't know.
In your professional opinion, is the 5-way, because we hear it's rated F, is that a true statement? Is it?
It's terrible.
It's terrible.
I would never design it.
We also have do we take into consideration the significant development of Walker Phase 2 on the north side of town, which will see traffic moving south, not necessarily always on Kirby Witten, but a lot of times they cut up Oak Road, they cut up Shadowlawn Road, and then they wind up coming to Broadway. There's significant development going on the north side of town. Did your data and the growth rate, which was 2%, did that take into consideration the growth of traffic coming from northern development in Walker Phase 2?
Well, I met with the staff, and I asked them for their opinion on what I should use for the growth rate.
Yeah.
So that's what we agreed on.
Yeah. What? Do you only focus on data and traffic movements and studies, or do you make recommendations based upon that for particular projects?
Oh, we make recommendations for mediation for things you could do to ameliorate the problem.
Yeah.
For example, Union Depot, we recommended that there be a new traffic signal put right at the front door of Union Depot. That was based on the amount of traffic that's going to be generated.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for your feedback. And and I'd like to ask a question about the mosque and the operational times, but you only mentioned Friday on 1 to 2, so I have to ask that question probably of the board. So unless you have other data points other than Friday from 1 to 2.
No, just, and I'm sure that they could speak to this, but from my research, the times of worship and the days of worship change with the calendar. So it's very different from, it's more similar to maybe the Christian Easter, which changes from, year to year. That Ramadan, the major feast, it could be in December, it could be in April.
So, but you really had no proven modeling for mosques. You had very few examples of mosque modeling. You had to go kind of create your own model based upon data, right, and research.
That is
But you didn't necessarily have anything that was baked that's proven, really. You had to go really create you had to really create the model.
I looked at what was available, which was very limited,
very little,
and used that as the basis.
Okay.
It's not as, robust a data set. If I were looking at,
right.
If you tell me a restaurant, I could tell you, how many square feet do you have? These are how many trips are going to be generated within a pretty good confidence limit. Okay. There are only a few data points. The fewer data points, the less certain you are.
Perfect. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd just like to say that I can attest what Alderman Reeves is talking about, because I've come through the intersection at least 2 times a day, and between Oak Road, Shadalong, and Broadway. And we first moved there, Rocky Further, Rivercrest, now those subdivisions in there. And I used to be able to walk to my mailbox without having to look both ways, and now I have to pause to wait for cars to come through there. And so that's just from one side. I don't know what it would like be coming from the other side, from Shadalong and from around that way. So that's a valid point. You brought up Mr. Reeves. So any other questions that Dr. Lewinsky could answer from the board? And I know this is probably not protocol, but did I address, I felt like I addressed the questions y'all had. Did I miss a question that maybe the doctor y'all had? Okay, good. So, yes, sir.
Why is this specific spot such an ideal spot?
I'm getting to that. I've got that question, but he's a traffic study. I let Mr. Bray point somebody there. Okay, so, all right. Thank you, Dr. Lewinsky. And Mr. Bray, if you could get someone to address why this is the ideal spot.
Good evening. My name is Badrul Hussain. Recently, I moved to 1078 Woodland Glen Drive, Cordoba. But I lived here for 20 plus years. This is the ideal spot. We were looking for a spot where we can build a facility where so many young professionals and entrepreneurs move to this area, and they're raising their children. And this is a spot that we came across that it is large enough to build a mosque. We are not civil engineers or traffic planners, but we didn't choose it as an ideal spot, but it's a very feasible spot. For us, ideal was the proximity. All of us that live in there, these people, they all are within 5 to 10 minutes of the spot. We have to drive, especially the Muslim men who go to the morning prayers. When I lived in Bartlett, it has to be like about 25 to 30 minutes drive every morning. And you do every day 2 trips, and then even in the evening also that distance. So that proximity was the number one reason that excited us. And it's a beautiful land in terms of landscaping and everything. So that is the thing. And the majority of the people live very much nearby. That was the reason we chose the spot. Okay.
There's been some talk. Do y'all operate a mosque now in Bartlett?
No, we just rented a suite in a shopping center. That is not by no means ideal, and we cannot even do separation between men and women, which our prayer requires. So it is just a stopgap measure so that we can gather, and some people come, and I think about 5 to 10 people maximum in the morning come, and the evening time usually 10 to 15 cars. That's the maximum. Of course, why we are doing 50 parking lot, but we expect when we have a facility that people can say, this is our place to worship and to bring our kids. Definitely, we expect it to grow from 10, 15 to say 25 cars. That's the maximum, because that's the reality. Though we are very much highly recommended to pray, for especially the men, the morning prayer and the late night prayer in the mosque. Very low percentage of us do that. Okay, so that's the reason the number is lower. Only the study that was done, that is assuming that there will be a big congregational prayer on Friday, that 1 to 2. The last time I spoke here, I mentioned that I don't expect it to happen anytime soon, or whether it will happen, because what happens is that Memphis has other 8 mosques around the Northeast is the only one we don't have any. And over this mosque, just like many people, even I'm pretty sure in other faith also, the weekly big thing, they like to hear to a very charismatic and well-spoken pastor, or in our case, the imams. And we have the huge facility in Memphis Islamic Center in Cordova. I live now 2 minutes away from that because I'm getting older. I unfortunately lost my only daughter, and I couldn't just tolerate this house and this environment. Every time it was bringing triggers, and I just begged my wife to move away from Bartlett because of that. Because my daughter's most of her life was there. She was a special child, went to Bolton High. But the thing is, I see the difference now. Now I can go every day because it's 2 minutes drive. The thing is, that is the reason we want this facility. The people who are committed to do that, for them it's a huge hardship, huge burden to drive 30 minutes in the morning and come back home, or go to work from there, or in the evening another 30 or 20, even if somebody speeds up and goes in 20-25 minutes, still 40-45 minutes drive instead of 10 minutes drive. So proximity, and the other thing is, all these people that you see, much younger than me, they're raising their children there. They're growing up there. So they want their children to be attached to the faith and attached to the culture. And, faith and religion keeps your children in a better spiritual state, because that's a challenge. They're raising the children. So we just want to feel home. That's the bottom line. That the reason the number of people grew in Bartlett is because the people who came said, I moved there in 2003, but these people said they started moving in 2006 or 7, and word of mouth, and if you move to Memphis area to do business, leave Bartlett. Bartlett is the safe place, it's the most beautiful place. This is the most green place in the entire country of the cities. Okay, so without personal reason, I would have never left Bartlett. I would have died in Bartlett, but I had to. But again, I shared my very personal stuff, that why I had to move. But again, our appeal is that you consider it, that I personally, I won't lie just standing here just to get this permit done or anything. It's your decision, but I do not think it will, the traffic per se, day to day, will impact in a negative way. I have driven through that intersection so many times in my life. Okay, I know how bad it is. Mm-hmm. And but the thing is, I don't think this facility will make the problem worse. And that's expanding that road and then taking care of the other stuff that the city has mandated on us. If we do those, I think there will maybe some even additional improvement on that area. And everywhere we have the Muslims in the Memphis area. When I came in 1988, there were hardly any Muslims I knew. And it has grown it's like almost 20,000 Muslims now in this bigger Memphis area. And we have excellent relationship with our neighbors. And just to give an example, I'm a Memphis Tiger, so I was going there, and there's a mosque which was a house and then converted to a mosque called Masjid al-Nur, which is next to St. Luke's Church. And of course, it was a residential home which was converted into mosque. What do you think happens in Friday? Because so many students now who are of Muslim faith and people around. So the St. Louis Church allows us to park in their parking lot during Fridays for last 20 years. So that's the relationship we have built, and it's their generosity and we also do go out of our way to be good neighbors. The mosque that I go to, Memphis Islamic Center, that is very close to Heartsong Church in Cordoba. And we alternate hosting Thanksgiving dinner. One time it happens at our place, other time it takes place at Heartsong. So I'm hoping that when our fellow neighbors in Bartlett and the leadership in Bartlett also looks into the positive side of it, because I think we bring a lot of value, not only just a facility, we bring a lot of positive value to the community. And these are all law-abiding, upright citizens here, and they are very hardworking, and they just hope and dream that they have their own facility. They don't have to drive 20 minutes just to have their regular obligatory prayer done. Thank you.
Well, I'm very thankful that y'all have a sense of belonging here in Bartlett, and there is a place for y'all here in Bartlett, and so I just want to say thank you for that. And some of the I just want to make sure I get something clear. The distance for those that live in Bartlett right now, they have a place to go to pray.
The temporary suite in a parking, basically almost not so popular shopping center. There are a few stores left there. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Ma'am, did you have something you'd like to add?
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I did. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you have a question for Mr. Hussain?
Make sure you stayed up because we were probably got questions for him.
Yeah, please stay.
Let's get if we get through with this questioning here, I wanted to have the question to make sure they had their questions answered, and then we'll move to a motion in a second, and then open it up for further discussion. Ma'am, you have the podium.
Yes, thank you. My name is Stella Yarbrough. I'm the legal director from the ACLU of Tennessee, and I represent Bartlett Muslim Society. I had written a letter to you all and sent it February 6th last week, and if it's all right, I'd like to go ahead and submit a copy of that letter into the minutes for this meeting. And I'm not going to read the entire letter. Mr. Harris did a really good job reading his long document, but I don't want to bore everyone with that. But I would like to just emphasize that state and federal law is extremely protective of the free exercise of religion, and that especially applies in zoning decisions like the one that's before you today. We've heard a lot, and I appreciate community members expressing their opinions and being heard. And we've heard a lot of concerns about the traffic study and whether or not the traffic would worsen in what is admittedly a complicated intersection. But I think what the traffic study shows is that the traffic would not get worse because of the presence of the mosque. And under federal law, the city would have to have a pretty high burden to meet in denying a zoning ordinance if it substantially burdens practice of religion. The city has to have a compelling government interest in denying that zoning application, and it has to have considered the least restrictive means of achieving that interest. And so in this case, courts often require cities to consider half measures or other measures that can be done to mitigate traffic or to mitigate those concerns before they deny the permit altogether. And I can't put it any better than Mr. Hussain said, but I hope that he answered your questions as to why, in particular, this spot is important, particularly for the practice of the Islamic faith. It requires prayer 5 times a day, and it encourages its members to pray together. And I think that is an important aspect of it. And so for our community members who do live close, they picked this parcel because it is convenient. It's 2 or 3 minutes away. They can come in the morning, they can gather, they can fulfill their religious obligations, and then go back to work, and they're not stuck in traffic doing a 20-minute drive to another facility.
Ma'am, 2 or 3 minutes away from what?
Where they live. They all live in Bartlett. They're all residents here, and so they want something that's close to home. Okay. And I think Mr. Hussein said it very well, too, which is we want to feel like this is our home, too, and I think the mosque would do that. So thank you all for your consideration, and of course, any questions you have about the legal parameters, I'm happy to answer them. Anything about the other religious parameters. I know you had Alderman Reeves had a question for Mr. Hussein, so...
Ma'am, please forgive me. I don't know if we got your name and address and who you're with.
Oh, excuse me. My name is Stella Yarbrough. I'm not a Bartlett resident. I'm an attorney. I am the legal director of the American Civil Liberties Union of Tennessee, and I represent them.
Thank you. Okay. So, folks, I hope y'all got y'all's questions answered. I did my best to make sure that you had those questions was answered and it didn't fall on deaf ears. So, and hopefully everybody, we've tried to do our best today to make sure both sides had their opportunities to state their positions on both sides of the issues. That's why we do the public hearings, and thank you for your comments from both sides and those that are written in. But it's come to the hour now to where we need a motion or a motion and a second, and then we can move it to further discussion if the board has to call whoever, what entity or whatever you have a question for, if you feel like you need answers. So the chair at this time would entertain a motion to be placed on the floor.
I guess I'll that motion, I'll second.
Been properly motion, second, and now we'll move to discussion. I know that there's discussion. If you would just direct me to who you'd like to get and direct a question to, we'll make sure we get the proper person up to address your question. So, Alderman Reeves, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Hossain? Thank you, by the way. And that was a touching story, by the way, about your daughter. I'm so sorry about that. And I grew up here, too. Well, I'd say grew up here. I've been here since 1985, so I moved here back in 5th grade. So, and I went to Shadowlawn Middle School, which is now the Bartlett Academy. And so I kind of remember when that was a big cow patty over there, and that was all it was for the most part. And we used to ride the bus every day, and there was no traffic over there. It was a beautiful drive every day. Of course, living here my entire life, I've got to see how much that's changed due to all the development in the back. You know, the citizens who live over there, they've got a point. I mean, they see a lot. They see a lot of traffic, and I've spent a lot of time over there. Traffic's bad. I mean, you know it's bad. I guess my question for you is digging a little bit deeper on the site. And you knew that the site was in a place where there was really bad traffic. Why'd you pick that one? Why not a better, more accessible place for your folks to meet?
So frankly speaking, I was not a decision maker. But I was in the board. But I personally didn't make the decision. Yeah. That time, the person who was the president, he and along with some other members did that. But I believe with the discussion is that they like that large land, and it was also happened to be that we could afford that. The price was pretty affordable for us. So that is definitely one of the criteria was proximity, and second, it was affordability.
Yeah, so and with all of the extra things that we're requiring, does that not change the affordability of the property for you guys? I'm just thinking.
I understand. There is it can be very expensive to accommodate everything that city has put on us. So that can be a hardship for us. And then for us to comply, definitely we need to get together as a community and just make sure that we can live up to the promise, because otherwise we'll be wasting money. Yeah. If we get half done, our city gives us a condition, do 10 things, we do 5 and say we don't have any funds, then we have throw away a lot of money, isn't it? Yeah. So we need to be prudent on that. But I believe looking at the commitment of these people, and they're very hardworking, and God has given them good wealth also. I think if we get the approval to build, then they will be excited enough to participate, and we can manage it. We can get those things done as required by the city, and so definitely it's not my decision alone, but the board will decide, and I think board will decide in the positive that okay, we will make this sacrifice to get it done. On the other hand, we will definitely try to do a job that not only helps our land, but also, as I said, the surroundings, because of the drainage and everything, which are already a problem. If we work on it, it will improve that situation than what currently is. So, but I'm not a civil engineer. I have electrical background. I don't understand Mr. Bray's stuff. So if you have any technical question, you have to ask Mr. Bray about that.
Okay. And I'm just going to say this. I love the fact that you guys are here and that you meet in Bartlett. You have a space that you meet in today, and you're going to outgrow it at some point. And I know you're looking to have your own space.
So the biggest problem is that we cannot include our ladies, basically. It's just one room, and there's just not enough space.
It's got a kitchen in it, doesn't it? You make some food in that?
No, we don't have a kitchen there. We don't have a kitchen there.
But in all seriousness, I think diversity makes our city stronger. I really do. The hard time that I have is reconciling a group of citizens who have homes and streets that are constantly filled with traffic, and adding any more commercial type stuff into that area is tough. I mean, this is really kind of put us in a tough position with this. You know what I'm saying? And
I definitely understand.
I mean, and we want to be good partners, but we also want you guys in the community to wrap their arms around you wherever you are. And given the way that this is kind of happening, I don't know how well that's going to work. I mean, because a lot of people in that area are concerned about this, and so it's tough. It's a tough decision. That piece of property and the location of it is tough, and there's a reason why it hadn't been developed. And the reason why it was cheap, right? Because nobody wanted to develop or could probably. But I appreciate you guys coming down, and we want you to have a place. That spot is problematic just in general, and the amount of traffic that's been going through that area for so many years has put a burden on the property owners over there. So it's something we just have to consider. So thank you.
I understand.
Alderman Keene?
During this process, and back to 23, have you ever just considered, let's sell this property and let's look or hire real estate and find another piece of property in Bartlett that's more suitable? And then you have all these restrictions that Alderman Reed is talking about. Has that even entered your mind, or y'all even discussed it, that hey, if you were in a different location and all, we probably wouldn't be having this conversation? I'm just curious, since 23, has that ever been brought up in y'all's discussion?
No, we have not. We have been optimistic that if it's the traffic study, we were relying on Dr. Lipinski. He was not my professor, but when I joined, he was a full professor at civil engineering in 1988. So I knew him because he was advisor to one of my friends. He did a master's. So we know his reputation, and say, okay, let Dr. Lipinski do an honest analysis of the thing. And if the traffic study passes, then we will continue to pursue this. That's where we stand, because the traffic study unfortunately was quite expensive, and we had to put up with that. So we were relying on the traffic study. If traffic study said, okay, no, it's just going to make the situation worse for your neighbors, then definitely we would have tried to start looking other places, and then to maybe sell this property. But depending on the findings, that we feel that we can still go on with this lot and develop a small mosque and everything. When the last time we came, of course we cannot just expand at our will. We have to get the city permission and everything. And we said that if it if it makes our neighbors feel better, we are willing to say that we will stay with not only that, we in writing we'll say we'll stay with 5,000. We won't even go to the 15,000 square feet. It will be strictly a prayer hall, basically. That's where we stick with. So that is my opinion. I've not discussed with everybody behind me. That will, to be very truthful. But that is what I said the last time I was here, standing here. But again, just if it doesn't really, I've been a Bartlett resident for more than 20 years, and I know how bad that traffic is. But if this facility doesn't add any additional burden on that traffic pattern, then I personally feel that we should be, our case should be considered with all the compassion that you have for us. I believe that you have, and this thing can be worked out in a positive way. But so the ball is in your court. You guys, you are wiser than me, and you have the responsibility towards not only us, to all the neighbors, all the residents of Bartlett. So we just trust that you will be very fair in the judgment, and we'll go on from there.
Sometimes I have a hard time of hearing, but did I hear you say that y'all had considered just a 5,000 square foot rather than 15?
Yes.
And just
And
use
that
it for
if that eases the situation, eases this worry for our neighbors, we'll consider. We are willing to do that. That we'll just do a 5,000 square feet, and then if the community grows, hopefully we can look for another plot somewhere else. Mm-hmm. So it's as our community will grow, so the needs grows. Why can't we even think about another facility maybe 10 miles away? And the community grows and also community shrinks. That I have seen. Like my son lives in Atlanta. A lot of our kids, they get to bigger cities and stuff like those. In some ways it grows, some way it shrinks also. Mm-hmm. Many of us are empty nesters, isn't it? Many in this room are empty nesters because the children have grown and moved away.
What are you doing? Just looking at the gray hair?
So I could.
I understand. Alderman or Vice Mayor Young, or who was it?
Okay.
Go ahead, Alderman.
So can you tell us about the space you occupy right now?
Mm-hmm.
But do you know how many square feet it is?
Pardon?
How many square feet are you in the shopping center right now?
I think he will be. He's the secretary of the board. Mm-hmm. Please.
Good evening once again. Mohammedullah. I'm the secretary of the board of Bartlett Muslim Society. The space we have right now, actually, the total space is 1,500 square feet. But there is like one small office room and another, the bathroom in there, toilet, and some other space in a corner. So basically maybe using like 1,000 square feet for our congregations.
Okay. I don't know if you recall, but I spoke to your group at Ramadan a couple of years ago.
Yeah, you've been there.
So I've been in your space, and I mean I only spoke to the men. There's 50 or so, but there was a lot of women and children in the other space.
Then we rented another space by that.
Right.
That is also 1,500 square feet. That's for like to gather, and during Ramadan we take our iftar, we call, and the dinner over there. But the praying place is 1,500 square feet, and the other one is same space.
So it's 3,000 square feet.
3,000.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But that was a crowd at Ramadan. Was that all your usual members, or that was a little high?
It's always crowded, actually, the Ramadan time.
And one of the technicalities I may just is that we have to pray basically northeast.
Mm-hmm.
So just getting a straight room doesn't give us as much efficiency. If we could just all stand one direction, that would be no problem. So when we do the prayer, we can only use that one room, not the other room, the overflow room we cannot use.
Mm.
And then the ladies who wants to pray, we just put a makeshift screen, and it's just not very honorable for them the way it is handled. And so most of them go home after we break the fast or something like that.
Right.
They go home and they pray there, and we guys stay there. So that's the reality, and we are cramped up, very much cramped up.
Okay.
It becomes very difficult during that time. But every day, regular day, no issue for us at this moment because, as I said, not everybody comes for regular
Sure.
prayer.
And how long have y'all been there?
I think from 2018?
2019.
2019.
Okay, so 5 or 6 years, and it's worked. Okay.
Yes, yeah.
So that's how you came upon that location on Broadway. It's within a few minutes of there.
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
I would say in like 2-3 square miles, we live like around 100 families. So that's the most the convenient place for us. We've been looking all around the Bartlett.
Sure.
We couldn't find any place, and all on a sudden, one day we found that land, and it is middle of our community and very proximate to everybody we live, so we can consider on that
Yeah,
one.
I mean, but that piece of land's been vacant since it's been cleared in the 1800s. That's the reason y'all got it. It's been passed down, through a lot of heirs. So let me ask you something real quick about the parking reduction. We talked on that earlier. The original plans that came, because I was at the meeting in 2023, and that was 152 parking spaces.
That was a complete miscommunication.
Well, I'm curious about that because it seems kind of odd to have somebody draw something up and then present it to a planning commission and it be a miscommunication. Somewhere along the line, didn't you go, that seems like an awful lot of parking spaces in there that we didn't ask for, David?
Yes, actually, as Mr. Bray said, it was a miscommunication, and we thought like there would be a lot of empty space if we build a 5,000 square feet building. It's a 8-acre land, and it will be like mud and grass. So why not we put like parking? If we can park, it will look nice.
Yeah.
That was our intention. It's not that many people. Then when question.
I was at that meeting, and at that meeting it was stated that sometimes there are weddings and special occasions where you'll need that parking.
But we never envisioned it will ever.
Well, somebody did because you paid Mr. Bray to make that, and then it shows up at the Planning Commission, 30 days before that at City Hall, and then it has to be, I mean, that's a long time to not notice. I think there are a lot of parking spaces.
We really don't need that. That was the only intention, to cover the land.
Oh, I get your intention. Well, a lot of your land's going to be with detention or retention to hold all that water back. So I understand that. It just seems strange that somebody wouldn't have said, hey, I'm looking at this, staring at this a lot. This is your dream. Mm-hmm. Looking at this a lot. I think there's a lot of parking there.
I think we try to overcompensate because the way the land is located, we realize there is no way on the street parking will be possible there. So we want to convenience the neighbors that somebody parks there just on the side of try to park on the side of the street. That will be a problematic thing. That's the reason we wanted to overcompensate. That if by any chance there are too many cars, we don't want them to even attempt to park there.
So a few minutes ago it was an error, and now you didn't want to have people park on the streets.
That is the 150. Somehow Mr. Bray probably thought that we wanted lot, means just put a parking lot.
Okay.
Lot. Maybe the fault is with us that we didn't look into the design he is submitting as much before we came in, and it was too late to change at that time.
I would just think in the future, my advice is before you pay a lot for asphalt, you really should look at the number of parking spaces that you're paying for.
Yes.
And also, in line with that question, I'm sorry, I'm not going to keep going, but what do you? Because you paid about $170 for the property, which is a great deal. I admire that. But what do you think the total build-out cost would be? You're talking about 600 feet of widening Broadway, boring under CSX Railroad, all moving the lift station. I mean, what estimates have you already been given just for infrastructure?
We didn't get any accurate estimate so far. No.
Well, how can you give me an inaccurate estimate?
No, we didn't talk dollars.
No.
So this is just you're just going to this project not knowing what this total cost would be.
No.
For less than 50 members.
Pardon?
You don't have any ballpark idea. Mr. Bray didn't give you an estimate.
I don't think he has calculated either. No, he has not calculated either.
So it's the old adage: if you can don't ask if you can't afford it. I mean, you can, no matter what the cost is, it doesn't matter. I mean, surely you looked at the city conditions and you said, "Woo, this is the price tag is such and such."
We believe that if we get the approval, the community will back us and we will be able to do it.
I don't doubt that. It just seems like when you come to them, are you just going to say, empty your wallet, or are you asking for a certain price? Because I know the cost of widening part of 70 for a lot smaller lot, and you're talking about $100,000. I mean, not even $100,000 for you, but this is like another frontage of 200 feet was $100,000, and you got to move utilities and bore under CSX. I'm sorry, I just was really curious what the price was because you got such a good deal on the land. I thought, well, that's where the savings are. I mean, it just seems like a lot of. I mean, and that doesn't get to the cost of the building and all your parking spots, however many that will be. But that's a lot of paving.
Kevin, I think it's obvious
okay.
They can't answer the question.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Alderman Young.
Yeah, I just would like to make a couple of comments. I personally don't have a problem with a mosque in Bartlett. I want that to be very clear on the front end. However, if I were going to build any kind of place of worship, it wouldn't be on an 8-acre lot for a 5,000 square foot building that's in a floodplain that would require boring for water and sewage underneath railroad tracks. It would require widening the road and would just add another traffic nightmare to what is already a pretty bad nightmare. I don't care what experts say. Broadway at 5 Point is bad. I personally don't understand the need, again, and I believe when this was originally submitted with the 150 parking spaces back in 2023 to the Planning Commission, it was a 15,000 square foot building, and it's been reduced to a 5,000 square foot building with possible additions later on. So I just think it's a bad plan for that location, and for that reason I won't be in favor of it.
Alderwoman Monique Williams.
Yeah, I just kind of wanted to piggyback off of that. I mean, my concern comes from, listening to you all speak, is just the ones that, advised you on to do this. I mean, it's a bad spot. It really is a bad spot. And, there's nothing. I'm very happy for you all to have. It's time to go, huh? I'm very happy for you all to have a mosque here. I'm a Christian, but I have a lot of good friends that are Muslim. I have a lot of people that patronize my restaurant that are Muslim, and I'm happy for you all to be in this community. That's what makes a community diversity. But I just don't feel like you were advised correctly. Not to put anyone down by saying that, but all of the things that have come up against you all on this piece of property, that's a bad spot. I don't care, mosque, church, like they said, grocery store. It's really a bad spot, and I do wish that someone would have consulted you on that and advised you that maybe early on to maybe think about looking at someplace else. Also would like, after looking at the letter, I wasn't at the October meeting, but looking at all the information and some of the things that were said to you all and the comments that were made, and reading the ASLU letter back in, I guess, October 2023, we don't feel that way. There were some comments made to the Muslim community during their meeting, and we don't feel that way. I don't feel that way, and I don't think Bartlett as a whole feels that way. He just was not such a good person at the meeting at that time. But again, I'm gonna close. But I wish someone would have had advised you early on about that property. I know what the traffic study says. It's a bad spot, and I hate to see you all spend all this money to try to make it work in that location when, again, you have so many people that are for you all having a mosque, happy that you're in our community, but understand that it's going to be challenging, and you've done everything under the requirements, to say, for us to move it forward. It's just, I know all of us, including myself, we're very torn on that because we know what it's going to be in the long run. So I just had to share that.
Did any other questions from the board, either side? I can't. Yes, sir. Alderman King.
I have a little background in construction, and if I was hired to be your contractor for that project, looking at it, I don't have any of the costs, but I have ideas what things cost. I'd say, look, we could pay more for another piece of property in this same area that would be better suited for us than it would be to try to take this piece of property and go through all the lists of what the city is going to require. And you, as your builder, I'd be saying, hey, let's see what we can find that would be more accommodating in the same area. I'm not asking you to leave. We're wanting you here, but as a builder, it would be my obligation to. And I know you must not have a builder yet, or as a builder, it would be my obligation to say, look, this is not the battles here, but the cost of what is going to be required to meet those requirements. We could pay more somewhere else and may even end up with a better location. That's just a thought.
Thank you, Alderman King. Any other comments, questions? Hearing none.
Can we do a voice vote for this?
Yes, we can. Number one, it's been so long. I think we had a motion by Alderman Monique, and then you seconded. Just for clarifications, can we restate that motion?
I mean, with great reservation on it. I just have to be honest with reservation. My motion is to move forward, but yeah.
I can take care of that. I can do the vote. I can do roll call.
Okay. All right. Okay. So,
are we ready?
If there's no more comments, we understand what the motion is and what the second was for. Okay. Yes, ma'am, Madam Clerk.
Alderman King?
No.
Alderman Griffin?
No.
Alderman Reeves?
No.
Alderman Williams?
So I have to speak again. So I have something written. I have to, I prefer, take my glasses off. Although I would prefer the mosque to be built in a different location without all these problems, I honestly, with all my heart, would prefer it to be built not in that five-way intersection. The applicants have done everything they're supposed to do. According to what we've asked, my feelings on whether or not it's going to be able to move forward with me knowing the cost for all of this, I feel differently, I'm so torn on this. I'll vote according to what was required of them. I'll vote yes, but
Alderman Young?
No.
Alderman Quinn?
No.
So resolution 01-25 fails by a vote of, I think I counted 5-1. So, Madam Clerk, will you read item number 2 into the record under unfinished business?
Third reading of Ordinance 24-14, an ordinance to amend the City of Bartlett zoning ordinance, Article 6, Section 9, Supplementary District Regulations, Parking, Storage, or Use of Major Recreation Equipment, Article 6, Section 10, Parking and the Storage of Certain Vehicles in Residential Zoning Districts by adding definitions, and Article 6, Section 12, Minimum Off-Street Parking Requirements.
Board, if it's okay with you, we're going to stop right there and we'll take a 5-minute break because it has been 2 hours, and then we'll re-adjourn in 5 to 10 minutes.
Where are we?
So at this time, we will close recess and go back into session. The item number 2 under unfinished business was read into the record. And at this time, I will call Mr. Sam Harris up to the podium to give an explanation for the city. And I would ask Sam, just not everyone may not be up to date on some of the amendments that have been made from the first reading. So you could also update us on some of the amendments that have been met, that have been, those amendments was made and changed in the actual ordinance, I believe, on the second reading. But get us up to date from when we started to where we are now, so that they have a clear picture of what the side yard and rear yards are used for. Thank you.
So yeah, this ordinance just more succinctly defines what is the front yard, the side yard, and the rear yard. It's making an effort for us to better serve our citizens and to protect the property values. In the current zoning ordinance, there's some very gray areas in the yard definitions. And so this is talking about the front yard being everything in front of the front yard elevation of the house. That front elevation being a continuous line that lines up with the front elevation of that house. Not the farthest edge, but the entire length of the home. That is the leading edge, that is the front yard definition. The side yard is the space that is between that front elevation and the rear elevation of the home. And again, that's a continuous line all the way across. Now, the rear yard is going to be the elevation along the back of the house. And again, that's from length to length, one to the other, not a leading edge. That would be defined as the rear yard. The biggest clarification that's happened since the second reading, or at the second reading, was the parking in the side yard requiring the screening. That screening requirement was lifted. Really, what this ordinance is looking for is to have a driveway and a paved surface to store trailers, RVs, and the like on. And that definition of a parking surface is a paved, dust-free surface consisting of asphalt paving, poured concrete, or other surface as approved by the building official in a residential district. So what is that other surface as approved by the building official in a residential district? We're looking at pavers, something that mimics concrete and is dust-free and hard. As far as a gravel driveway, in my 20 years with the city of Bartlett, we have never approved a gravel driveway. So to go back to what our citizens were at the mic talking about earlier, we do not want to put any undue hardship on our citizens, but at the same time, the storage of these items in the front yard, it does cost our other citizens money in the fact that their properties are being lessened by having to look at boats, trailers, and the like in the front yard. And so what this ordinance is doing is just trying to tighten up those definitions and what can be stored and how it can be stored.
Okay, thank you. And so obviously the board's up to date on all the amendments to that, so the chair to entertain a motion.
Second.
Been properly motioned to second. Is there any discussion? To Alderman Quinn.
Yes. I know this has been going on for a while, and we've done a lot of work on it, but people are still, just like a gentleman tonight, are just now kind of catching up with some of this. And I don't know what to do about the front yard in most residential uses, but I do believe that there's a problem with some estate-sized yards, just like the one I had illustrated on Shadow One, where it has the barn right in the front yard and the house is hundreds of feet back. And I would like to, if we could figure out a way to make some kind of exemption for like estate-sized lots or something where a house is more than 100 feet back or maybe over 2 acres. I also have a problem with some people have contacted me where they're on 10 acres, but because of where their house is sitting, they have a horse arena or exercise area out further front, and they can't park a horse trailer out there because it's technically in the front of their house, but it's 700 feet away. That's technically their front yard. So I would like us to figure out if we can, I don't know how to, I'm sorry, I'm trying to figure out how to make that an amendment, but I would like to see if planning could tell me how we can carve something out for, or if it's possible to carve something out for these larger lots and some kind of distance without getting too into the weeds of the definition where it makes it hard to enforce.
It sounds like it would be easy just to exclude estate-sized lots, which would be, but Sam, would you like to speak to that? And would you address any questions that may come up too about grandfathering something in?
Absolutely. So the problem with exempting one zoning district from these requirements from the other is you have zoning districts being treated differently. In order to be a uniform city that we're all hometown proud of, we should all play by the same rules. So therefore, in all residential zoning districts, a strike is a strike and a ball's a ball.
Mm-hmm. So how would you think to address an issue that a guy has a barn in front of the home that was there probably when it was built in Shelby County and we annexed it, or they asked to be annexed?
So essentially that is a grandfathered non-conforming use out in the front yard. Mm-hmm. So as far as maintaining that, they would be allowed to maintain that. As far as adding on any additional storage or supplement, to that existing barn, mm-hmm. you could store things within that barn, but as far as adding to and making that non-conformance any larger, that would be a violation of the zoning ordinance.
So when this individual was in the county and it was there, it was grandfathered in. It doesn't mean that he can go add on to it or make it larger or build another one because it was only grandfathered, the structure was there when it was coming to the city.
Right. So with a non-conforming situation, it can exist as is, but ultimately the end goal is that non-conformance will eventually go away and it would conform to the Bartlett zoning ordinance.
Mm-hmm. And just organically tell us how that happens.
So essentially with a non-conforming structure, you're able to maintain that structure, but eventually over time that structure will get to where you can no longer maintain that, and then eventually the structure is no longer able to be replaced, and then you would have to replace that structure in conformance with our zoning ordinance.
And so the concern on the table now is that if I have a horse trailer at a horse barn and it's in front of the house, even though the building was grandfathered in, I would still have to put the horse trailer behind the front setback.
That is correct.
Okay, that's the issue at heart. Alderman King.
Sam, so on maintaining, so if you had a barn, you could put a new roof on it, correct? You could put new siding on it, mm-hmm. correct? If it was a pole barn and one of the poles were bad, you could replace that pole. Mm-hmm. So you can maintain it. So it's a possibility that barn could be there a long time if the people maintained it.
It could, because within the non-conformance, there's generally a 50% rule. If you're replacing more than 50%, then it has to come into conformance. If you're replacing less than 50%, then you are maintaining that non-conforming structure.
So you're saying you could replace the whole roof, not 50%, but you could replace the whole roof because that's not more than 50% of
right.
it.
Right.
And then a year later, you could replace siding on front
right.
and back, and then a year later, the siding goes out on the back. You don't have to maintain the original structure that whole time, correct?
No. Okay. No, you could, as long as you do it in less than 50% increments, that's maintaining the structure.
All right. So is it possible that it could be, of course, if you own a barn, you can have a horse trailer, or you could have a trailer for the tractor that's in the barn, or something like that. Is it possible that you could say that on a non-building like that, that you could have, I'm just asking, that you could have one trailer beside that barn, or even have a trailer behind that barn for as long as that barn was there? Is that even feasible?
This particular instance, the citizen did reach out to Trey Arthur in code enforcement, and they worked out the issue.
Okay.
Now, exactly what they worked out, I was not privy to that discussion. However, back to your question, though, we will not be actively going out and citing these instances. We will be reporting to these instances as they come into our office, and then going back to our citizen who had the neighbor with the car on blocks. Please report that to our code enforcement department, and we would be happy to handle that for you. But what we are really looking for is if that storage is really screened and out of sight and where it should be, then that's really conforming in our book.
Did that answer your question, Kevin?
Not really. I didn't mean to get off into the barn repair thing, but I think your barn's pretty good, though. So. Yeah, it is way back. I was confusing two different stories. One was like the horse arena out here, and sometimes they may have a trailer out there, but it's in front of the house. Their barn is behind. I was referring to, there's two different, I'm sorry, I got two stories together. One is on Shadow Lawn. There's an old barn there that looks like it needs a new roof, but it's way in front of the residence, which is in the back of 6 or 8 acres.
Okay.
So I guess I had two different stories. But I can see they're kind of the same, not about the structure, but just about how you use something on an estate-sized lot. But you're saying the position is somebody on 1/3 of an acre and somebody on 3 acres and somebody on 13 acres all have to be treated the same, even though they bought into different lifestyles in different areas of Bartlett that don't have sidewalks and street lights or various stuff, or maybe a few LED street lights, but no sidewalks and whatever. So that's what you're saying is the city policy is we can't carve out exceptions for exceptional properties.
So one of the responses we get at our front counter all the time about the level of service in the city of Bartlett is I am thankful that y'all are not overburdensome with your regulations and that you are consistent with your regulations and that essentially a ball is a ball and a strike is a strike. And so as far as carving out a niche zoning district that can not be in compliance with the definitions of the yard and storage of items within the yards, that puts our code enforcement in a tough position. As is with our agricultural zoning district, it does allow for an accessory building to service the agricultural features on that lot. But as far as a residential estate lot, it's a single-family residential lot, and it's to be treated just like any other single-family residential lot in the city.
Alderman Quinn, do you have a specific amendment to the motion, or do you have a
Well, he just told me that that's something that we don't want to do because it treats somebody on Ivanhoe the same as somebody on Mary Jane or anywhere else. I don't understand that because that's the reason people buy acreage, so they can use it somehow. You go up and down Old Brownsville, there's all different things. Some people they do want 1/3 of a lot. Some people want 3 acres, and some people have they want to be able to park a horse trailer in the front because they've got horses in the front, and the house is way back. So I don't understand that. So I'm not really sure how to make an amendment, honestly, to do something about that. But I think we need to look at that in the future. Somehow we can do that. Now I don't think it's unfair to tell people on different areas, because where I live and you live and Robert lives is different.
Right.
And so I'd like for us to be able to look at that, please.
So you don't have no amendment to the motion, but we will look at it going forward.
Yes.
Okay. Is Alderman Reeves?
I got a question. For Ed. What is there any litigation if we were to treat different zoning areas differently or different properties differently, would that open us up to potential litigation? So if it's not uniform, and we were to change.
Well, the agricultural thing is saying that could be different, but there's a legitimate reason to treat that differently.
Okay, so we really need to keep it uniform across different property types, because if we treat one property different than another, we could have somebody sue us potentially.
Yeah.
All right. So before, if we do have an amendment come on that, can we kind of look at that and what that opens us up to? Because I understand what Alderman Quinn's saying, but also understanding that if we treat people differently, we could get sued over it.
So there was not an amendment.
Yeah.
But I'll instruct our code department to look into that and see if there's a way. See if there's a way.
See if there's a way.
Yeah, see if there's a way. If there's a way forward.
Well,
so if there is no more discussion, I believe we've had a motion and a second on the. Geez, I'm losing my place here on the third reading of ordinance 24-14. So that closes discussion. Madam Clerk, will you place the roll before the Alderman, please? And that ordinance 24-14 passes unanimous. We now move to item number 3 under new unfinished business. Madam Clerk.
Third reading of ordinance 24-15, an ordinance of the City of Bartlett, Tennessee, adopting by reference state traffic offenses and rules of the road.
At this time, we recognize our City Court Clerk, Mr. J. Leatherwood.
Good evening. This is the ordinance to adopt rules of the road from Tennessee statute to match the city ordinances.
Move we approve. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, Madam Clerk. Ordinance 24-15 passes unanimous. We have 3 items on the consent agenda. Any board member remove any item for a separate discussion and vote. Is there any item any member would like to remove for separate discussion? Seeing no one wishing to do that, Madam Clerk, if we get a motion, we can move forward.
So move.
Have a motion and a second?
I haven't read it
I'm sorry.
yet.
He wanted.
That might not be a bad idea.
That's okay. Item 1, bid for utility billing print services. Item 2, renewal of postage machine lease. Item 3, treasurer's report for December 2024. We have Vice Mayor Young as motion. Was there a second?
Second.
Yeah, and I do apologize. We've all read it. I know y'all
sorry we
hadn't
jumped
heard
the gun.
it.
We were, yeah.
So there's been a motion and a second. Place the roll. Consent agenda passes. Under new business, Madam Clerk, item number 1.
Reset the public hearing for March 11th, 2025 for Resolution 02-25, a resolution approving a special use permit to allow a planned residential development to be located at the southeast corner of Yale Road at Bartlett Boulevard within the RS-10 single-family residential zoning district.
Well, okay.
Second.
Yes, sir, we have had an explanation, but we got a proper motion. Second, any discussion? Hearing no discussion, Madam Clerk. The motion was to reset the public hearing for March 11th. Motion carries. Madam Clerk, item number 2.
Resolution 05-25, a resolution to amend the fiscal year 2025 Bartlett City General Purpose School Fund.
Mr. Dick Phoebus, Director of Finance, is recognized.
This comes to us from the school department. They received some additional funding from the state for their Tennessee Investment in Student Achievement Program, and they're also utilizing $10,000 out of the General Purpose School Fund balance to buy some equipment.
Mr. Mayor, for the record, I think that was Resolution 0625.
What did I say?
I'll make a motion.
I listened to you.
Sorry.
Yeah. Motion, second, any discussion? Madam Clerk. Motion carries on Resolution 05-25. We now move to open discussions. Any board member have anything they'd like to say?
Mayor, I think that was 0625. Just for the record, that way it's not messed up. You said 0525.
That's what mine says. It's 06. What does it say? Anyway, sorry, just typo extra. That's what my paper says. But anyway, 06-25. Stand corrected. The floor is open to the board first. Any board member have anything they'd like to say? Alderman Griffin, you're recognized.
I just want to thank the Parks Department and the volunteers who showed up for the Valentine's 5K this weekend. Great turnout from the residents, but also great service by the Parks Department making sure we had another successful event. And also formally want to wish happy birthday to Alderman Brad King.
Mm-hmm. You didn't spank him enough, Mom.
We love you, Shirley.
You
might want to think about spanking him.
Any director have anything they wish to say? Seeing no yes, sir. No, sir. I'm saying for director of any department, the floor is open. So, but I see none of them, no director coming forward, so the floor is back open for open discussion. For anybody that's filled out a form, and you're welcome to come forward, sir.
So I would hope that, Nick Buzzy, 3463 Flint Long Drive. I would hope that Sam can actually clarify for us side yard versus front yard. I personally am not looking, I would not be okay with anybody parking their trailer in the front yard. And I feel like I understand what he's saying is that as long as it's behind the front or in front of the front elevation of the house, that's considered the front yard with some degree. My side yard, as I understood it from him, would be from the front elevation to the rear elevation on the side of my property. But I still feel and want to make clarification that you guys are still voting yes, that we are going to have that paved, and that I can't just keep my trailer parked on the ground as it stands today.
Yes, I tell you what we're going to do. Are you finished, sir?
Other than I would say it's going to hurt small businesses, because again, it is expensive. Concrete's very expensive, and my buddy Josh just started a mobile pet grooming business. They just told him and approved for him to put gravel on the side of his garage where he can park his trailer. Similar situation to mine, but he doesn't have the sloping and the problems that I do. But it is going to be important for you guys to take that into consideration because we times are hard. So
yes, I understand that. There are some alternatives to that surface, and so after the meeting, if you get with Mrs. Tanya right there or Sam and tell them your condition, and they'll work with you on that. Same way with I think we're down to one fella, two. Yeah, we had anyway. The other two fellas that spoke about that too. I suggest you see Tanya. You please raise your hand. You just see her afterwards, and she'll.
I heard the pavers and the asphalt stuff. So can Sam clarify that is considered the side yard and not
yes,
the front
sir.
yard?
As I said, you can talk to him afterwards.
Okay.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to come forward? Yes, ma'am.
I tried my best not to say anything, but my neighbor just sent me a message. She's the one that her house. Oh, yes. My name is Marva, Marva, Jackson Malone. I live at 6819 Old Brownsville Road, Bartlett, Tennessee. I live on the old Brownsville, not the new old Brownsville. Okay. The young lady who I'm representing, her name is Doris Willis. She lives right at that corner where Billy Moore and the street with four-way stop sign. Mm-hmm. Okay, and her driveway is at the stop sign. She says that water is, I'm going to read what she has. She says, oh, Lord. Okay. They're all chiming in on me right now. Okay. Do you... Get out of there.
Ma'am, I can answer the question for you now. If they would just call our engineering department, they will send an engineer out to take a look at it and see what we can do to help resolve the issue that she has.
Okay, with the water.
She's the same one that called in about the stop sign not being visible a couple of weeks ago.
I believe so.
Yes, ma'am. Since then, we've ordered LED lights, and we put LED lights around all four of those stop signs. I went out there myself and drove it, and there's a point to where the LED lights don't come visible when you go over the hill, and those lights aren't as visible. So then I had them go back and put reflective tape on all the posts. So hopefully those four-way stop signs are a little bit more visible for the people, and that's all the suggestions that I can come up with at this time on the four-way stop. Okay. But afterwards, if you want to just give me her name and number, and I'll help make the contact, and if she's got a number, I'll have our engineering department get a hold of her.
Okay, she's also concerned about extra water going in her yard.
That's the guy putting her on, but answer all those questions.
All right, sir.
Thank you.
One more thing.
Yes, ma'am. We'd love to see her one day.
I hope so. can you put some lights on the one on our dead-end street that we have at the corner of Connector in O'Brownsville?
On that stop sign?
Uh-huh.
Let me take a look at it and I'll see what we can do.
Okay.
I know we can put some reflectors on there, and but let me take a look at that and I'll see what we can do.
Okay, sir. I just don't want to get hit.
Yes, ma'am. We don't want you to get hit.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? If not, motion to adjourn. Been properly motioned and second. This concludes the meeting for adjournment.